The story of the mouse spirit. Once upon a time there was a student, the son of a rich man, who was pampered and cared for very much. At the age of 20, his parents got him married. His wife is a beautiful and dignified person. The two love each other very much. After half a year of being married, he was ordered by his parents to study with the poor man in the province. He brought along an old servant to take care of food and serve. Because of the poor road conditions and the increasing amount of schoolwork, he has not had a chance to visit his wife for half a year. One day, around midnight, the sleeping wife suddenly woke up and saw her husband suddenly entering the room. She was both happy and surprised and asked, "When will you come back?" Answer: "Just got back." "Why don't you wake up, say hello, talk, and then have dinner so I can go blow?" Husband waved his hand to stop him and said, "Number. No. I miss her so much. For a long time, I wanted to go home, but I was afraid that my teacher and mother would scold me to death. Today I sneaked back here for a bit and then the cock crowed again." "Don't wake up. Why should your mother wake up? As for rice, we have eaten enough at the market." Saying that, he turned off the light and went to bed. My wife believes it to be true, without any doubts. The next night, seeing her husband come home again, his wife couldn't help but be suspicious and asked, "The place where you study is 2 days away from home. How come you always come back like that?" Answer: "Because I missed her. I hid from my teacher and mother and asked to go study with Mr. Le, about 10 miles away, so that I could come back with her every few days. She just pretended like she didn't know anything, so she had to not let anyone know. From then on, my husband returned every few days. Because the wife loves her husband, she keeps quiet. That's why no one inside the house or the alley knows. It's been like that for half a year. The husband's parents saw that their daughter-in-law was becoming more and more pale and yellow. They thought it was because they missed her husband, so one day they wrote a letter asking their son to ask permission to visit home. Seeing her husband return, the wife considered it a very normal thing. On the contrary, the husband is very busy, especially when entering the private room. He talks a lot, telling how much he misses and longs for her. When the teacher allowed him to come home, how happy and nervous he was, etc. Not seeing his wife say anything, the husband thought she was angry, so he tried to caress her with sweet words. His wife still bowed her head in silence. Her husband turned around and made an angry face, lying against the wall. Then his wife spoke up. "You act like you only come home once in your life. Playing tricks with your teacher, not playing tricks with me?" It was her husband's turn to be surprised. He sat up and asked for a while, "How's it going?" "How? Gibber. Gibber." The wife started telling her husband everything about half a year ago and said, "This person has a red mole on his neck, pierced ears, and a scar in the middle of his forehead. If not you, then who else?" Hearing that, her husband knew there was a dispute, so he held his head and cried very pitifully. Parents and family members ran in to ask what was going on. After hearing her husband explain the situation clearly, his wife learned that for half a year she had been sleeping with a stranger pretending to be her husband. It was his wife's turn to hold her head and cry and attempted to bang her head against the pillar. Everyone had to gather together and use all sorts of advice and coaxing to calm the storm. A few days later, the husband and the old servant went to school again. The wife had given up the idea of committing suicide, and the father-in-law asked for some talismans to post at home. He told his daughter-in-law that if she saw someone coming in, no matter who it was, just grab it and scream. All the servants were ready to rush in from all four directions when they heard the cry. Even if the bad guys ran away, they wouldn't be able to escape. A few days of silence saw nothing. Suddenly one night, they heard a scream in the room. The whole family quickly rushed in and saw the wife holding someone's hair, screaming incessantly. They rushed back and tied the culprit to the pillar of the house and tried to beat him, but when the father looked closely at his face, it was strange that it was clearly not a stranger, but from head to toe, it was his beloved child. So much so that when the mother saw the intruder, she burst into tears and one or two forced her to immediately untie her child. At that time, the whole neighborhood came to see it in large numbers. No one could tell the difference. Many people said, "Okay, you've taken your child by mistake again." The old men said, "It would be better if someone quickly called his son from the province to come back here, so if you want to guess then you should know." On the second day, the son staying at the boarding house received the news and walked all night to return home. Everyone looked back and it was strange, though two but one, though one but two. They were so similar that eventually everyone didn't know who was real and who was fake. Therefore, they had to tie them both up and take them to the district. The district officials did not know how to decide, so they sent the case to the province. After several days of interrogation, the provincial official could not find any clues, so he submitted the case to the king. At that time the reigning king was a good judge. The emperor once found clues to many very strange cases. When he saw the two people arriving in front of the dragon yard, the king first ordered his bodyguards to strip them of all their clothes. After the examination, the king and officials were all amazed that not only the facial features, shape, even the black spots, red spots, and dangerous places in the body were all similar to stereotypes. The king turned around and told his mandarins, "There is a ghost in here." If they were human, they wouldn't be so magically identical. An official reported, "I heard that demons are invisible objects. Sunlight can pass through without leaving a shadow. Please, Your Majesty, take them out into the sunlight to see if the one without a shadow is the real one." That statement was immediately carried out but to no avail, because as soon as the two stepped out into the open air, their shadows were clearly printed on the brick floor. The interrogation began. The two people were taken to two places and interrogated in detail, from the name of the rice offering to very trivial things. But reading the file again, the king was even more surprised to see that both sides gave the same statements, without a single mistake. The king scratched his head and thought. The whole court couldn't find any other solution. Finally, the king went to Fudong Temple to burn incense and pray for help. The bronze god spoke up and said, "It is an old man who has lived for many years and has become a star. Now fire, water, copper and iron cannot harm him, and the spell on him has also lost its effectiveness. The only way is to go to heaven to borrow the opal from the Jade Emperor, give it, and it will appear in its original form. But now in heaven, we are busy with so many things that it is difficult to borrow. I will take action for your majesty. First, put 2 talismans on its back so it can't hide." Suddenly, 2 talismans flew down in mid-air and fell into the king's hands. When they returned to the palace, the king ordered his guards to immediately stick them on their backs and force them to turn their backs to each other in front of the dragon yard. Suddenly, I saw a person trying to struggle, but it seemed like he was tied tightly and couldn't move. Suddenly the clouds darkened, followed by an explosion of thunder. When the sky was clear again, people saw that there was only one person left in the middle of the yard. Next to it was a man with shaggy hair of 5 colors, a beard as white as snow, lying dead and motionless. The case was thus revealed. The king ordered the chimpanzee's body to be burned into charcoal and thrown into the river. As for the rich man's daughter-in-law, it took more than a year to completely eliminate the poison. 1. Horror. Nagi and people have a story. Why are rats called sewers? Is a variation of the above story. Once upon a time, there was a house that kept a male mouse. This mouse lived over 100 years, became a demon, had many transformations, could transform into a human, and was proficient in everything around the house. After that, the homeowner went to work far away and did not return for a long time. Just like the story above, here the mouse turns into a man who looks like a statue of a tribute. He lies to his family that he has just been allowed by the king to go home to rest for a while. When the wife saw her husband return, she was happy. The two lived together for more than a year and gave birth to a daughter. One day, when the real husband came home, the whole family was surprised. Looking back, they were both as similar as 2 drops of water. They asked about everything from inheritance to good and bad. They both spoke clearly. Were they the same? Something wrong. The promotion to Mandarin. The Mandarin asked the villagers if anyone knew what the family's private affairs were like and allowed them to reveal it. There was a person who declared that his family had not kept a cat for 3 generations. Only a male mouse kept the house, and the other mice did not dare to come and bite. Asking family members, they found out that they hadn't seen that mouse recently and didn't know where it had gone. The Mandarin guessed that among these 2 tributes, one must have turned out to be a mouse. Just invited a famous wizard. The teacher took the lynx with one hand, then along the other line he said, "Try it." Immediately the fake tribute and his daughter suddenly turned into mice, their faces broke and they died. That family's troubles were thus made clear. Nowadays, people call rats, man of tribute, for that reason, too. Nagi and people also have another story that says, there was a mouse in the mountains, who lived for many years and became a demon, often appearing as a human, raping women. In the village, there is a student who has not returned from taking an exam. The mouse then transformed into a student, with the same face, clothes, and speech. After 5 days, the real student returned and called at the gate at night. His wife inside called out, "My husband didn't pass the exam and is back here. I wonder who is calling what?" The student broke the entrance gate. The fake student also scolded him. "I'm back here and I don't know who dares to impersonate me." The 2 sides fought. The bringing to the Mandarin. Thanks to a skilled magician, he established a flock of foxes with heaven. God sent a golden cat down, forcing the demon mouse to reveal its true form. 3. All of the stories have the same theme, the same magical animal as the image, and are quite close to a Chinese fairy tale. 5 rats cause chaos in Dongkin. Bao Kong catches demons. Ngu Dongkin's riot. Bao Kong's love story. See Strange Tales No. 140, Volume 4. Regarding stories with the theme of trial in which a ghost transforms into human form, husband or wife, to have sex with people, ethnic groups near us also have them. Khmer story. Rabbit becomes a judge to trick ghosts. A guy who had just gotten married was forced by the official to join the king to fight the enemy. He was so sad that he went to a banyan tree to sit and cry. He cried and left, then was afraid that the mandarin would order him to leave. He kept repeating that several times. Finally he had to go. On the banyan tree, there was a ghost that saw his wife was beautiful and turned into a guy who came in at night. The woman asked, "Why did you come back?" The mandarin said, "I don't have to go to war." The two sides lived together for a while. Then the war ended and the real husband returned. The wife was surprised and did not know which of the two was her real husband. Two men argue. The bringing to the mandarin. The confused judge questioned the wife, and the wife did not know how to testify. I had to put it aside. The husband was so sad that he wandered away and met a rabbit who told him a story. "Don't worry," the rabbit said, "I'll help." So he went to tell the judge. "This case is not over yet. Take a jar and tell whoever gets in is the husband." Hearing that, the fake husband was very happy. "I will win." Then he crouched down and crawled into the jar. The rabbit told him to stop the jar tightly and throw it into the river, saying, "It's a ghost, and real people can't get in." Then the guy took his wife home, and the rabbit went back to the forest. 4. Laotians also have a story like the one just told. A man complained to the mandarin about a ghost, Phi, that took on the same shape as him, fighting for the loss of his wife. The judge said that the wife would return to whoever could squeeze into a small hole. Some said it was a bamboo tube. While her real husband cried, the ghost quickly turned into a shrinking spell and crawled back in. The mandarin had enough evidence to return the wife to her real husband. 5. Both stories probably come from an Indian story. A Brahmin was very poor, had to sell rice to make a living so his mother and wife could stay at home. Meanwhile, a villain transformed into the form of a husband and pretended to return home to tell the two women that he had found a way to make a living. A few years later, the real Brahmin returned. Trouble also happened like the above stories and was finally brought to the king for arbitration. The king let the villain sue. The Brahmin returned disappointed. Passing by a field, seeing a group of young cowherds playing the role of kings and officials, the Brahmin cried and asked to see his injustice. The child who acted as a fake king, after receiving the real king's consent to handle this case, held out a large jar and told whoever was the real husband to go into the jar. While the Brahmin cried loudly because he could not get in, the evil spirit entered. Immediately the child told him to stop the jar and throw it into the fire. Vietnam also has a trial story, with similar details to the above stories. In Hoang Dong Village, Thot Lang District, Lang Son, there is a man named Quach who married a wife in another village half a day away. On the wedding day, the bride rides home in a palanquin. Upon arriving, opening the palanquin, people saw not one but two brides who looked exactly alike. The bringing to the mandarin. The mandarin ordered the rope to be high above a person's head, telling anyone who could jump over it to be Quach's wife. One person jumped right away. The officer caught and beheaded him, but he disappeared. The other person who couldn't dance was indeed the bride, and the mandarin sent her back to reunite with her husband. 7. A Chinese trial story from the Bao Kong period, although the image is different but the theme is the same. Once upon a time in Yangzhou, there was a poor student who studied well, named Lu Chan. One time, Lu took an exam but arrived at school too late. He stayed at Kainwen Pagoda, ran out of money, and had to work as a cursive writer to make a living. Just met Prime Minister Kim, referee Lu, and called him into the palace to teach his children and grandchildren. On that occasion, Lu saw the Prime Minister's daughter and was fascinated. At that time, in Bich Du Lagoon, there was a carp that lived for 1,000 years and became a star with the magic of transformation. One day, the fish turned into a girl, went out for a long trip, and could not return in time in the morning. She quickly showed her true form and hid in the pond of the Prime Minister's residence. All night and night, spraying steam into the peony bushes made the peonies look unusually beautiful, making the Prime Minister's daughter fascinated by the flowers and go there every day to look at them. Fish saw that Lu Chan was handsome and in love with the Prime Minister's daughter, so he transformed into the Prime Minister's daughter and went to Lu's room to make love. After a while, the fish invited Lu to escape to his hometown and live as husband and wife. Even though Lu was lost, the Prime Minister's family still did not pay attention. But the peony clump has since dried up, and the lady has fallen ill. The Prime Minister sent his family to Duangqiao to buy a beautiful peony tree to plant. That person happened to enter Lu's house. Seeing Lu's wife, he was surprised and thought she was a young lady, so he quickly went back to inform the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister sent his subordinates to ask Lu and his wife to return to the capital. Seeing the fish, the Prime Minister was very surprised because it looked exactly like his son. When asked Lu, he confessed that he and the young lady had run away together, and now he pleaded guilty. The Prime Minister asked Bao Kong to judge. Bao Kong sent two people, the fish and the lady, into the palace and used a mirror to look at the ghosts. A moment later the fish released a cloud of black gas. When the black gas dissipated, both the fish and the lady disappeared. Bao Kong asked the tutelary god for help. The tutelary god asked Long Quan to close the sea gates to hunt out monsters. The fish were chased too hard and ran into the Nam Hai. Bao Kong posted a sign announcing that anyone who knew where the goldfish goblin was would be rewarded with 5,000 francs. At that time, there was an old man named Trin Bin who often helped people and worshipped Quan Am. One night, I dreamed that Guan Yin asked me to go to the riverbank to show him Bao Kong. When I woke up in the morning and went to the wharf, I only saw an old woman holding a bamboo basket. Upon entering Bao Kong's palace, she took the fish in the basket and questioned him. The fish told the truth and the truth about hiding the lady in Bich Du Lagoon. Bao Kong wanted to have the fish slaughtered, but she accepted to take it to distribution, and the reward money was given to the old man surnamed Trin. 8. When I found the lady, she was almost dead. When healed, Bao Kong asked the Prime Minister to marry Lu Chan as his wife. China also has two stories that are not trial stories, and although the structure and images are different, they all have the same theme as the above story. 1. Duang Hung is an orphan and his uncle is a deputy general of the Chu family. Raised in Ha Chao. Chu loves him very much because he is intelligent. Chu has a daughter the same age as Duong. Although they let her live and eat together, her family rules are very strict, so nothing happened. Suddenly one day, Duong was walking around and suddenly saw a girl named Chu following him. From then on, the two fell in love and started dating. The housekeeper found out and informed the owner. The Chu family asked his wife, and she said, "My daughter doesn't sleep with me every night." The Chu family was confused, but they also found an excuse to chase Duong out the door. Wandering everywhere, he finally had to stay at a temple in Lan Chao. One day, I saw a palanquin stop at the door, and when I looked out, I realized that my lover was coming with many precious belongings. The girl named Chu said she was going with her uncle who had just been promoted to the position of captain in Lan Chao. Duong came to greet his beloved uncle, who returned the favor. When he saw his niece living with Duong like husband and wife, the uncle was surprised because he had never heard of marriage. A few days later, when something happened, the uncle returned to Ha Chao and told his brother. The Chu couple said, "Our daughter has never left the house." Finally, they discussed, now that something like that happened, their daughter couldn't help but have a bad reputation, so it would be better to marry her to Duong. Then do as advised. When bringing the bride home, one person becomes two. Duong was confused when one of the two girls came out and said, "I am a fox. I do this to repay a favor, don't be scared. Once your grandfather was hunting, I was shot by an arrow and thought I would die, thanks to him. He tied it up for me and then released it. I wanted to repay the favor but never had the chance. Recently I found out that he loved Ms. Chu but there was no way. I did this to replace matchmaking. Now that the job is done, I'll come to greet him." 9. 2. During the Jin dynasty, there was a man in Go Hung who had 2 children. One day, the 2 children went to work in the fields, suddenly saw their father coming to beat them for no reason, then left. They told their mother. Mother blamed father. Father was surprised and said, "I have never been to the field. It's probably a demon taking my shape. If it comes again, let you guys just kill it without blame." Tomorrow morning, the 2 children go out to the fields again, sticks in hand. That day they came home late. When he didn't see his son return, his father went to pick him up. He thought he was a ghost, so he killed him and buried him on the spot. The devil saw that and turned into his father to tell his mother. That's okay, they killed the demon. In the evening, the 2 children returned. The whole family chatted happily as if they had achieved a victory. A few years later, a magician passed by and said to his 2 children, "Your family is in trouble. I'll go home and tell my dad." Dad shouted, "Kill it." The 2 told the magician to leave immediately, lest something bad happen. But the magician did not go but rushed straight into the house to read the spell. Suddenly the father turned into an old weasel and hid under the bed. The 2 sons knew they had killed their father last time. Then he was reburied and started acting as a ghost. 10. Few people also have the story Tin the Mouse, but it has a different content than the story Tin the Mouse above. Basically a poor widow. One day, she met a man and lived together like husband and wife. "Thanks to my husband bringing home food every day, life is a bit more comfortable than before." But gradually, neighbors noticed that their food was often stolen. They lie in wait to fight criminals. And when the old man, the woman's husband, fell, his true form appeared as a large mouse. See also the story Ha O Loi, number 116, below, and the story The Student with Three Demons, number 131. A Buddhist story, Lo Kai the Bourgeois, whose purpose is to educate followers, also has the image of a god transforming into a human, exactly like a wealthy man, causing trouble from families to kings and mandarins. In the past, in the country of Xave, there was a rich man named Lo Kai who was famous for his wealth, but also for his stinginess. One day the king held a festival. Everyone competed to eat, entertain guests, and have fun according to custom. Lo Kai also spent some money to buy good food but was afraid of entertaining guests, so he took it to a faraway place to eat and drink. Alone. After eating, getting drunk, singing and dancing alone, he thought he was happier than Dithich. God Dithich passed by that day and saw this, so he decided to teach him a lesson. Then, when the real Lo Kai was happily drunk away from home, he transformed into another Lo Kai, then went back to Lo Chi's house, called Lo Chi's wife and children in the neighborhood, and said that he was previously haunted by a stingy ghost. He should be bad-mannered and stingy with everyone. Now I have learned the magic to expel demons, so I can chase them away. Then he ordered his family members to prepare a party to invite relatives and friends to eat and drink lavishly, and to open the treasury to take out money and distribute it to everyone. While people crowded around to receive the distribution, Lo Kai returned sober. Seeing a person who looked like him sitting between his mother, wife and children, Lo Kai stewed in anger, but Dithich, fake Loi Kai, quickly pointed out to his family that it was a stingy ghost and told them to close the door and not let them in. In the end, the two sides argued fiercely, and everyone did not understand anything. They brought each other to the king. The king did not judge. After being brought to Buddha, Dithich then showed his true form and returned the property to Lo Kai. 11. First. According to Tan Tong manuscript. 2. According to the Affidavit of Folk Tales. According to Nguyen Van Ngoc, the reason people call mice, man of tribute, is because in the years when there were exams, mice often went to rummage through exam books and chewed them all up. The school officials were afraid of being blamed, so they had to avoid the name, mouse, to keep it from disturbing the house. Not knowing what name to call him, they awarded him a bachelor's degree, calling him Mr. Kong. Ancient Tales of the South, Volume 2, cited. According to the story Tong Tran Kuk Hua, when Kuk Hua was forced to marry her by her father, the head of the family, she had 2 servants who brought offerings to her mother-in-law and gave her 8 pieces of gold to pay for her funeral when she died. The 2 dishonest people did not give or share the gold, but then a group of rats stole the gold and returned it to Trang. Trang then appointed the mouse to study as a tribute. Trang Nguyen immediately took it in her hand. That gold is truly my wife's. Mouse, where are you? That 8 pieces of gold, give it to me before it's too late. Thanks to the king, I'm here alive. Ordained you as a rat. 3. According to the Declaration of Vin and Village. 4. According to Midong, Medan. Stories about Judge Rabbit, BSEI, 1933. 5. According to Fano. Learning about Lao Literature, BEFEO, 1917. 6. According to Kazkan, Kasqueen. Research on fairy tales and legends. 7. According to Sohn, Shaon. Collection of new articles. 8. Because of this story later, to visualize Guanyin Buddha, people often talk about an old woman holding a fish basket. 9. According to Tan Te Hai, Volume 6. 10. According to Su Then Ky. 11. According to Torch Wisdom, 1936, and Savannah, Chivane. 500 Ancient Stories and Fables extracted from the Chinese Tripitaka. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.